worried that you might be the cool kid? You wear the latest fashions on top of all the trends. Or have you ever worried you were too much in the mainstream? Always so generic, more normal than your friends. Well, we've devised a test to put to rest your fears. There's no need to panic if you lend us your ears. Tonight you can't sleep easy after all that you've heard. Cause if you like the show, then you're probably a nerd. Oh, Canon, it's Canon, it's all. Tyler, Phil, and Boris. Oh, Canon, it's Canon, it's all in Canon.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the It's Canon podcast. That's right, we are back for more Mandalorian goodness on this awesome episode. As always, we are your hosts. I'm Boris, and this week we are joined by Tyler.
Hey-o!
And Phil.
Howdy doody.
Awesome. All right, guys. What an episode we had on Friday. It was arguably one of the most jam-packed episodes in regards to story, in regards to Easter eggs, in regards to, Star Wars goodness. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Seeing as it is Mando Monday, we are going to be reviewing all things Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 3, Chapter 11. I know I'm going to screw that up at some point, but I have yet to do it.
Yeah, it's the episode called The Heiress. And you're gonna hear us wax poetic tones all about it here.
That's right. And for the first time, we are joined by a listener of the It's Canon podcast. So, we are breaking new ground in that sense here on the It's Canon podcast. I've always said it, but now, here it is. It is true. We are an open show. It is a show for you guys. It is geek therapy for us. We are one community. We are, and everything is in canon. So, anytime that we can bring a listener to the show, I'll be happy to do so. So today we are joined, or we're going to be joined by Andy Hall, who is a listener out from the Hammer here in Ontario. And it was a fantastic chat that we had with him, and Phil, as always, does a great job of running with the show, seeing that he is our resident Star Wars nerd, more so, I guess, than Tyler and I. So yeah, we have a really good chat coming up. Anything you guys want to say before we jump right into it?
Andy did great. I'm impressed, and I'm just gonna say it. Tyler can give me a run for my money in Star Wars any day. Both of you can, but I'm just gonna hats off, guys. You guys make it easy to do all this funness.
Aw, look at this love fest here.
Fuck you guys.
All right, let's get some frog action going.
All right, so without further ado, here is our Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 3, Chapter 11, chat.
All right, welcome everybody to the It's Canon podcast show. We have a special edition for you this week in that we're going to be talking about The Mandalorian. So guess what? It's Mandalorian Monday here, and we've got a special guest with us this week. We've got Andy, one of our listeners. How you doing, Andy?
I'm doing pretty good. Been a good Sunday so far.
Awesome. Well, for everyone there. So, with the magic. I've also am joined by the infamous Tyler.
Hey everybody, I'm doing my best Drax impression this week because as Boris saw, I can't read subtext today.
And we also have our Commander-in-Chief, Boris. Say hi to the people, man.
Hello, everyone. Hopefully everyone's doing great on this beautiful Monday.
Beautiful Monday. I wonder
Beautiful
what the
Monday.
weather's going to be like.
Beautiful Monday. Oh, I know. I know it's going to be beautiful.
Good. Because today it is not. Even though it's Monday. All right. So let's get right into it, everybody. Like, let's take a look at this. I assume we all watched the episode that premiered on Friday on Disney Plus, The Heiress, which was Dallas Bryce Howard giving her contribution, rejoining the directing cast to guide us through the episode. Just wondering what everybody thought of the episode. Are we liking what we saw? Are we disliking it? Are there concerns? Is there happiness amongst the crowd? What do you say? Tyler, take a shot.
I think it's my top 3 episodes. It's up there. I loved it. It had great dramatic irony because there's a ton of things that we, the audience, knew was going on if you knew a lot of other Star Wars stuff. And if not, you have a lot of reveals coming.
Yeah, it's kind of up there for that. Andy, what'd you think?
So I've got a buddy of mine who wakes up pretty much every Friday morning, and the first thing he does is watch the Mandalorian episode. And I get a 3-word review from him the second he's done watching it, and he said to me, "quote This is the best episode of the Mandalorian, period." And I was like, "Oh my god, this is going to be amazing!" Now, before I say what I'm going to say, don't get me wrong, I agree that was a great episode, but for me, I felt like it was a trailer. If we go and see an amazing movie, we don't come out of it being like, man, I really loved the trailers. We say, oh my God, I really loved the movie. It was amazing. And I feel like this episode started so much that we've all been kind of waiting for, wanting for, longing for. As soon as that dark blade came out at the end of last season, we're like, uh-oh, this is going to start so many things. And this particular episode, while great, started all that. And like by the end of it, I was like, oh my God, this is going to be amazing. And then the trailer, the credits come, and I'm like, no, I need more. I have to have more. That being said, I can't remember the actor's name, but that cameo was fantastic. I love him. He's fantastic in everything he's ever done.
The guy from Deadwood, right?
Yes.
Yeah, the Imperial commander. He's a commander.
That being said, episode was great. Loved it. But I'm now just yearning for so much more to come.
Yeah. I kind of see where you're coming from there. Hey, Boris, what do you think, buddy?
Well, you know me. You know that I stay up because I don't sleep. So I stay up to watch the episode on Thursday night, Friday morning. And I give it 2 thumbs way up. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I do have to agree with Andy, though. It feels like there's constant building blocks for this show. All these teases. And so far, we haven't had any payoff. Which... again, I'm very patient. I love the fact that this show is kind of rebuilding the lure of Star Wars, but at some point, there needs to be some payoff, and I'm starting to get a little nervous that we're not going to see that. But, having said that, this episode on its own was 2 thumbs way the fuck up.
Yeah, I gotta say, I watched it, and I sit with it for a little bit, and then I have to rewatch it for the show here several times and start doing critical analysis. But my first viewing is kind of like 13-year-old me, right? Like sitting down and watching it and not trying to overthink it, just trying to experience it. And
so I have a
13-year-old me went absolutely bananas. Like,
awesome.
Yeah.
I'm afraid of what else 13-year-old you does.
Oh, gosh. I was a good 13-year-old.
So I have a question for the group because I want to jump in on this because I think this might be a position where we may be diverging a little bit in our larger positive reviews. So did you think that the reveal of the Mandalorian, the titular Mandalorian, being of this subsect, do you think that wasn't a payoff then? That was just more build-up? Because I thought that was a payoff of a thing we were... Like, it was a small payoff, right? Because you're doing the little payoffs to build it up.
I agree.
We really got... For me, I felt it was a big payoff because we kind of got to the bottom of where the Mandalorian, like Din Djarin, fits in with other Mandalorians and where it fits into the canon that's established. The question that I came away with was, depending on your level of Star Wars nerd geekiness, would depend on how much of the payoff you kind of get as an audience. Now, I have no clue about Andy's experience or Andy's expectation, but I know for a lot of people, just to be fair, I think they're going to look at Bo-Katan being on the screen and go, well, who is that, right? Like, other than being a cool character that's being portrayed by Katie Sackhoff, right?
Mhm.
It really does come down to, is it appreciated that there's a huge story arc
Yeah.
that we've lived through? Like, I tried to explain it to my dad, and I'm like, it's almost been 20 years of watching animated shows
Mhm.
that kind of got realized in this one episode, and that's what made me happiest.
I'll
So,
definitely agree with you on that. Before Mandalorian even came out, to kind of fill that void of knowing it was coming, I watched all of Clone Wars and Rebels, and really, our experience with Mandalorians up until those cartoons was, we saw Boba Fett, we saw the clones and the original and the prequel trilogy, but that was kind of it. They never really dove into what Mandalorians are. So when in the animated series, when you see Bo-Katan and the rest of a lot of the Mandalorians take their helmets off on the regular, and then you get into the Mandalorian, he's like, "No, I can't take it off. This is the way, be all end all." You're kind of like, "Well, wait a second. All those Mandalorians took off their helmets all the time. Like, it was a normal
Mhm.
thing." And then you get to this episode, and you kind of have those two things like smashed together, where it's like the Mandalorian way, Bo-Katan way. It's like, well, now what is the fact? And then they make. I think they spent like 30 seconds explaining, oh, he's part of this old thing, and now
Mhm.
you're like, oh, wait a second. Now we need to get more information on that.
Yeah.
Whereas to me, you guys talking about it brings it back, but to me, I was so intensely excited about the fact that as soon as I saw Bo-Katan land, I saw that helmet, I saw the artwork, and I'm like, oh, my fiance has not watched it. She's actually just starting Clone Wars today. I was like, honey, 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 oh my God, it's Bo-Katan. Oh my God, oh my God. The art, like, and then she takes off the helmet. And I'm like, oh
Yeah.
my God, they did it. And then, so like that reveal kind of dwarfed everything else for me
Mhm.
because I was just on fire about this reveal that just happened. They land, the baby's in the thing. It's like, what, so many things are going on all at once. So there was so many things that happened in that episode, which is why I feel like it's like, well, I need to know more about this. I need to know more about
Mhm.
that. I need to know when Bo-Katan's going to go try and get her Darksaber back. I need to know when we're going to go see Ahsoka Tano. Like, all these
Mhm.
things are happening now, and that's where I'm like, I need more. I
yeah.
need so much more.
All right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to jump into our kind of breakdown of the show, because I can already tell we're on point for probably a little bit deeper of a discussion about some of the reveals and some of the characters and some of where we think this episode's going to take us with the series and, subsequent seasons even. I think it is a big package that they're putting in front of us to open up on Christmas Day, for the kind of the end of season 2 here. So we'll just take a look at, basically, we have the Razor Crest coming in and doing a big crash onto the water planet, I think Trask. And I don't know, I that opening sequence was a lot of fun for me. It didn't have those cheesy sound effects like we had in, I guess, the spider episode, because it was in space, so it wouldn't naturally make that noise. And I just really enjoyed seeing the repurposed walker kind of hauling the Razor Crest out of the water,
Mhm.
and just that whole kind of sequence to me was a lot of fun. I know it was pretty, straightforward, but you guys have any thoughts on that how they kind of rolled this thing right out from the minute we left off the previous episode?
Go for it, Andrew.
My initial thoughts, especially in terms of the Raven Crest, is at what point is he just going to give up on that poor ship?
Yep.
Because like it's now has seaweed holding 90% of it together. the fact that it's even going to try and go back through the atmosphere again is besides the point. But the fact that I keep coming back to it, I'm chatting about this show, is that this show was made by Star Wars nerds.
Yep.
They have thought about absolutely everything, every possible detail. And instead of a bunch of execs sitting around a table being like, so how much money can we make out of this? You have a bunch of guys being like, dude, what if we try this? Or what if we do this? Or what if we do this? And the fact that, like you said, there's a repurposed walker. As soon as I saw that, I'm like, huh, yeah, they took an old walker and repurposed it. And like it, like the tiny little things, like you could watch these episodes a million times and not catch everything. But no, the fact that he lands and we're all like, okay, cool, he landed. He goes into the water. I'm like, yeah, perfect.
Yeah, I was a little shocked actually when that happened. I was like, the ship's already. I'm wondering if his guns are even in there. That great little closet of guns. You know what I mean? Like it just was a little bit alarming. And the funny thing is, out of the Star Wars stuff, you know where they got the inspiration for the AT-ATs from Empire Strikes Back? Was going to the docks and looking at those huge cranes.
Yeah.
That was the inspiration. So in a funny, really weird conceptual way, this is a return to that original idea with the walkers. So
if I may
I
interject
thought,
for a second, one thing that I really enjoyed about this opening sequence, once we were down on the planet, was the fact that it was a water planet. I don't think, on TV, we've seen too much of water in the Star Wars universe. Like, this is the first time that we really got, on screen, this different type of world.
I agree. I would be
live action for sure.
Yeah, live action for sure.
I mean, on that just kind of puts me in my head of like, we had a moment in the Squadrons video game where you visit Mon Cala briefly, who, for those who remember the Legends timeline, Mon Cala was like super important.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
now
that was
less so.
Point, like I think it was in Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Mon Cala and the Quarren War.
Yeah. And it's and it talks about stuff in Squadrons where it's like it is a manufacturing base still, and they still make ships, and it's not as much as it used to be. But I would love for us to go there at some point. That's just as a quick little aside on that water planet bit.
Well, I think preventing it in the past, like deserts are easiest to do.
Yeah, 100%.
Landscapes and filming. I think water is one of the most challenging of the special effects kind of things to mitigate on set. So I think that whatever the volumes technology is, that it's enabling this type of shoot to happen and this type of environment to be created is really a sign of, I guess, the special effects progress. And Andy kind of hit on it too. When you have maybe this idea where they sit there and they go, well, what's best use of our money? Instead, the production crew is, wouldn't it be cool? Let's do this. Like, I don't think there was permission sought. I think there was ambition to just go out and prove that they could be done.
Yeah.
And that speaks volumes to, the way that this show, again, I don't know how Dallas Bryce Howard gets stuck with. That's got to be a huge technical challenge. And she kind of had it up against her last season with the horror-esque, Samurai 7 kind of episode too. So good for her for navigating that. I'm sure it's going to be in Disney Gallery. And we also get, what's surprising me on the internet this weekend is the reunion between the frog people. I call the green guy Kermit, but there's like so much art. Yeah. What you guys think of that? Like I was pleased, but I didn't think that it would get like this much love.
For me, at least, I think Tyler brought up a great point, and this kind of solidifies it now on second thought, and that's the whole conversation about payoffs. I think that what we're seeing a lot of are minor payoffs, and this being one of them. This wraps up that storyline. So, it was cool, I liked it, but damn, there's so much fan art about this already, it's kind of crazy. But, I guess the point that I'm trying to make is that, the payoffs, they're there. They're minor, and, they kind of want you to feel satisfied as these episodes move along, because they are telling a story, finishing up stories, but we have this much larger story happening in the background, that, there will eventually be a payoff. When that happens, it might be this season, might be next season, it might be season after that. Hell, it might even be on another show at this point.
Mm-hmm. Well, and they also have the capacity now to do the true Star Wars thing of even the Mandalorian thing, which is kind of a wonderful microcosm of Star Wars, is like they're going to come back in the next season or something like that, and it's going to be like you're going to see their kids or something.
Exactly.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So be a tiny little sprinkling in, and like, oh, frog person.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
Yep.
And as we've seen from, I'm all about the interconnective tissue today, but as we saw from the different point of views, like they love telling the stories of other people in the universe, and part of Star Wars has always been that sense of Sonder, which is like, what is that devil guy in the cantina doing? Why is he a devil? And then they're like, oh, we actually have 4 books about him, and you're like, sure.
Yep.
Yeah.
The thing I really enjoyed about the frog people this time too is that for most of the parts in a lot of the different Star Wars movies and series and stuff, regardless of what language the creature speaks, everyone just understands it, and there's this instant dialogue back and forth all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But in this sense, the frog person starts talking, and Mando's like, I have no idea.
I don't have that one.
There's that disconnect between them, and like they struggle. But the go back to the last episode for a second, the fact that the frog person's like, I need to talk to you, so it grabs the droid and it's like, this is how I'm going to talk to you for 30 seconds. But yeah, I really enjoyed that. Instead of like them giving the frog person some Jar Jar Binks-esque like weird language, they're just like, no, you're not going to understand what the frog person's saying.
Good point.
Yeah.
I really like that.
I agree. I think that part of that is why Chewie did so well. They understand it, but Chewie and R2 from the original trilogy especially, right? Like, we never directly understood them.
No, it's right. It's right. You guys that's a really good point. I always get a little bit uncomfortable with some of the language choices. I do not enjoy, as we know, I don't enjoy when, in Solo, when Han tries to speak to Chewie and, that's just, come on. Don't like that. But I do like that element where you just either understand them or you don't. And I really did like that they went out of their way. Like, to me, there was something that happened in this episode, and I'm saying it now because we're talking about it and it feels natural. But with Mando, he doesn't really seem to understand the child, right?
Yeah.
The child and Mando, they know each other through and body language and history. But there was a moment where at the end, when Mando is picking up the kid from the frog people,
Yep.
he says, no, we can't have any more pets. Like he acknowledges like it seemed to me like he actually understood what the child was saying.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if it's just a good-natured fatherly guess. No, we can't keep it because the kid's obviously like, oh, I want to play with it more. But it seemed to me rather on point that it was a genuine response.
Yeah. I think it's
which signaled to me like, ugh.
Yeah, I think it's two pronged there. I think number one, it's that whole father son theme that we've constantly and broken down over the past few episodes. But I also think that it's the bond that they have in regards to how long they've been together. If you're around someone that speaks a certain language, you're gonna start picking up certain words here and there. So I think it's kind of both at the same time, because I picked up on that right away, that like Mando is clearly understanding more of what the child is saying.
I also wonder
when the kid was like the footprints type thing last episode. Sorry, go ahead. Tyler.
No, totally. I mean, there was also a small, let's call it a kerfuffle on the internet over the last episode that Phil and I chatted off the podcast about, where people were upset about Baby Yoda and the fish eggs. Which then the response from the creative team was interesting, because they were like, yeah, we're trying to make him less cute and we're trying to make him do more creepy, insidious things. And you got to wonder how much is them very obviously taking something that is incredibly toyetic, and then they've kind of decided, like, we're going to use that to explore this part of the universe more and explore what is happening here. And I wonder how much they're gonna, like, they've obviously have a much bigger plan that's more nuanced than even I thought it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that they're gonna end up doing, the thing of, like, this baby is not inherently good just because he looks like Yoda.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I wonder how much is the Force getting into Mando.
I saw that some people really did respond, and I think there was a lot of outrage about the whole implication of eliminating an
Mhm.
entire race by consuming it before the eggs are fertilized and all that, which I kind of looked at as a bit of, I don't know, a little bit of fake outrage or whatever. To be honest, like every time the baby Yoda child is in jeopardy, that could be the end of its bloodline for all we know.
Mhm.
The one thing that did kind of stick with me though was some people's reactions that they don't find the child that cute anymore. It's damaged their view of the child and the child products.
Yep. What? And
So it's a risk.
again, the creative team said that was the goal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Star Wars isn't cute. And
Yeah.
I don't think they care about Baby Yoda being cute or not cute. They made a cute thing in the first season, absolutely.
Mhm.
It's adorable. I mean, my fiance freaking wants every doll toy imaginable. But at the same time, like, Star Wars isn't cute. It's a sci-fi series. It's supposed to be sci-fi. It's not supposed to be adorable and, fun. It's supposed
Yeah.
to be, entertaining and amazing. Every time the Baby Yoda started slamming back some eggs, I kind of laughed. I
Mhm.
found it funny. I found it like, it's a kid. It doesn't know that it's not supposed to be doing this. It's also a kid that's hungry, probably hasn't eaten properly, sitting in a broken down ship for a while.
I think that hunger thing is really the point of it. It was comedic relief, dark humor, as Lucasfilm was kind of let out, and it was also the fact that now Mando is really responsive to the child because he goes, "I know you're hungry."
Mhm.
Like he's actually saying that to the kid. He never said that before.
Mhm.
Now finding food is an issue, and that's what happens in the story now, because basically we go to a bar, and the price of a seat is basically you got to eat, and Mando's like, "I'm gonna buy info," and pulls out the flan from last season,
Mhm.
the money, the Mon Calamari money, but they also pour a bowl of chowder for the child. That obviously, when you watch it, you will see the kind of bulging spit
Mhm.
that is the squid that come out that I didn't notice for the other corn that they had it going into their bowls. But it ended up, Yoda or the child, this thing attaching to his face, which was again very alien-esque. The face hugger octopus, and the moment where Mando has to, stab the thing, and then the child just like gorges on it, right? Like,
Yeah.
he's slurping it up like spaghetti.
Yep. But I think one thing
So
that a lot of people don't realize or remember or want to consider when talking about this stuff is the fact that things aren't perfect in this world, right? Like, they've gone out of their way to make this show as realistic as humanly possible. You just saw the fall of the Empire. You're in the middle of transition, whatever that transition looks like. You're literally on the run. Guess what? You are going to get hungry. Guess what? You're not going to be perfect. So I think that it's just people have this to Andy's point, like this, sunshine and rainbows view of Star Wars and the Star Wars world. Whereas if you've been a Star Wars fan for a really long time, you have a more realistic view as to what happens in Star Wars, and it's not always happy stuff. It's not always happy-go-lucky. These people are on the run. They're going planet to planet. They eat when they can, and they do whatever they have to survive.
I'm going to push back on that a bit, I think. Cause I'm worried we're getting into territory of, like, you're not a real Star Wars fan. Which I mean, this whole fiasco online, from my reading, was some people originally doing some pretty milquetoast criticism. Like seriously, like I saw the Yoda thing, the Baby Yoda thing eating eggs, and I was like, oh, that's not great. And it wasn't me being like, how dare they? It was more of like, oh, that's dark. Like that is dark. That is dark, 90% dark chocolate, dark. And then I from my readings, what it was like, some of the original round of criticisms, a lot of them were pretty like, oh wow, that was dark, and some people, got more upset. And I think it's in their entire right to. There's a couple of people online who seem to have like a very emotional response to that, and that's entirely valid. But then they got attacked online, and if you're getting attacked for like, especially for pretty milquetoast, like, this is dark. I don't know if this is really what I would have done, but
At the end of the day,
And-
for me, it's everyone has an opinion. Whether it's everyone is allowed to their own opinion. Whether I agree with it or not, that's completely out of the
Sure.
beside the point. What I can't stand though is the see, we're walking on eggshells at this point. For lack of a better word, it's the cancel culture. It's because I don't like this. This is quote unquote wrong. This needs to go away.
I think that in this instance, especially from my reading of it, that was not how this. Like there was not really a. And more importantly, there was never really a cohesive thing behind it. We shared a Vanity Fair article that I even said I think was irresponsible reporting because it was very much like some people disagreed on Twitter, and it is, as someone who I think that there is a time and a place where canceling is legitimate. Like I think that I think John Bolton shouldn't be allowed. We shouldn't be giving him publishing deals. I think that John Bolton should be canceled in that way. But I think that's very different from people offering some pretty mundane criticism. And then I think we got to accept that there's part of the defend Star Wars crowd that are rabid maniacs.
Yep.
Yeah.
And are issuing death threats to Rosemary Tran. And if we look at canceling as like a larger concept, I have seen more damage and more damage and bullshit about anti-canceling than the canceling group has ever really gotten.
Mhm.
Like if you can raise $2 million for your legal defense fund for no one suing you because you've been canceled, I don't know. You're not hurt.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think that the media on culture coverage of this, where it's like, oh my god, people are saying cancel Baby Yoda, and it's like, are they, or are they offering like some mild criticism?
Yep.
And then people get in Twitter fights, and it's like, okay,
Well, I think that's it because you
that's
have
not news. To me, it's the modern equivalent of like, yeah, go for it.
No, I was just gonna say because it's kind of like
Right.
us geeks in the Star Wars world. We kind of have our own discussion going on. Some reporter jumps on, reads a couple stuff, and says, "Oh, I'm jumping up on this," and then that creates and created a much bigger issue in the grand scheme of things.
100%.
Anyways, Phil, we've been
100%.
spending.
I just looked at it like a little Twitter thing. It's valid criticism.
Yeah.
That's it. So
Anyways,
And then Vanity Fair was like, "This is the end of things." Like, oh,
yeah, but
And
we
then-
all agreed that was trash.
yeah, and then
So,
we just invested 10 minutes on this, so
yeah, let's get
Well, there you
past
go.
it. So basically, we get onto this quarantine ship. We get the child, Mando, there from the trailer. We've got them looking at this big creature the first time we've ever seen it. And
Mhm.
he's like, come on, we'll have the kid watch it and all this. And it was all a setup. And the emotional stakes got pretty high pretty fast. When the Quarren kicks the child in, the child just at the last second gets those little pram doors to close on its egg. And it gets eaten. And Mando immediately defends that theme that we continue to observe, where he jumps in to rescue it, and then the Quarren, basically, this was their plan all along, cage him in there and want to get that Beskar.
Yeah.
So this is the big moment.
You know-
this leads to something absolutely huge.
yeah.
in
You know what my
Mandalorian.
favorite part about that was the fact that it indeed was a trap.
Yeah.
And it goes back to the whole setup all the way from the Mon Calamari to go, I know a guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like right there, when you rewatch it, you're like, oh man, it's on. Like they're all on the take here.
Yeah.
Well, and I
And
love that
yeah,
after we've had Mando have a couple of episodes of him being pretty badass, that it's like he can still be surprised, and that's like you're gonna get him sometimes.
yeah, yeah. These past 2 episodes, they got him on the trap with the bike.
Yep.
And they got him on this one like completely pants down on this.
Yeah. This one, yeah. I also love the. I don't know if it was intentional or not, but it felt a little bit like a mirror to that earlier one, where he refused the ride from the droid
Mhm.
because he's like, I trust biological things more, and I wonder how much of that is him also starting to be like, I don't know. It mirrored that really well to me.
Well, and we have the biological beings, right? The Quarren and
Mhm.
everybody, and he's misplacing his trust, maybe. You
Yeah.
know, on this planet. Andy, what do you think of that whole? What did you and your fiance think about watching that? Because I imagine that was quite shocking.
So I mean, even as a viewer, it was like, okay, what is this? I was more intrigued about what this being was going to be in terms of, are we about to see a new Star Wars massive monster creature thing? What's it going to look like? The fish go in, it's fairly, fish are being eaten in a thing. We're not seeing anything yet. What's happening? What's happening? And then boom, in goes egg. And of course, my fiance is now ecstatic because she's like, no, Baby Yoda has to be protected. But she was ready to dive into the water, let alone Mando. And that scene went from 0 to 100
Mhm.
real freaking quick. And but
Mhm.
I do have to laugh at the fact that blaster shots for the most part bounce off of Mando's armor, but they're trying to jab him with a blade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Mhm.
that's not really going to do a whole lot to,
Yeah. Well, they're
make
just
them
trying to
go
drown him. But the thing is that in this version of, or I guess in all along in Star Wars, we just don't know it. They really went and highlighted it when the Mandalorians take their helmets off. You hear the seal break, just like when
Mhm.
Darth Vader takes his helmet off. So these
Mhm.
guys are in their own little ecosystem as far as being sealed off from certain elements, right? Just
Mhm.
like stormtroopers are sealed off from certain elements. I don't think certain types of gas can get through and things like that. Like there's different filtration systems when you
Mhm.
do the read ups on some of the technical gear in the books. But yeah, it certainly seems like the thing that I took away was his jetpack works underwater. that was
That's
that was
true.
the biggest thing, right? I'm like,
Yeah.
and at this point we have the introduction of basically the Night Owls. All right, so we have Bo-Katan and 2 nondescript, Mandos. One of them being Sasha Banks, coming in and basically getting Mando out of there. And then Sasha Banks dives back in to get the child after Mando tells them that, the child's in there. And yeah, we get to that point where they take off their helmets and Mando immediately starts, where did you get this armor? Right? Assuming that they're just parading as Mandalorians and not actually part of it. And we get that explanation that Mando is, in fact, part of a zealot group, basically, that's derivative of the Night Watch, which
Mhm.
for all the people out there, the 2-second the 2-second update here, because it is a deep subject, is the Night Watch are basically just a bunch of guys, a bunch of Mandalorians that tried to retake Mandalore through the military force, or through this adherence to uh, uh, a very diligent code that Mandalorians used to subscribe
Do,
to.
do you
And
mean the
Night
Death
Owls,
Watch?
Death Watch, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
And basically the Night Owls came in, and that was Satine, and Bo-Katan is Satine's sister in the Clone Wars series, and she was like more about, well, we have to be reasonable and we don't need to wear helmets, and we don't, we're warrior people, but we can also be smart diplomats in the universe and broker peace that way. So it is really a cultural divide. So Mando's on one side of that, and these Mandalorians are on the other side of it, which I thought was interesting because they part ways. They
Mhm.
immediately, Mando retreats back to the city, watches them blow up the boat, and is like, all right, let's just get on with it. Then I'm going to go back into town. And yeah, story progresses. But what are our thoughts on this big reveal? Katie Sackhoff, Sasha Banks. We got a lot
Yeah.
in this. And we got story explanation. What's all of our reaction to that? Whoever wants to go first, speak up.
Go for it, Andy.
I'll say it again, like I said earlier. As soon as Bo-Katan landed, and I saw that very distinct artwork on her helmet, I like was like smacking her. I'm like, oh my god, I know who that is. Oh my god! And the best part is like whenever I watch things, I always have to have the captions on because audio is not always the greatest.
Mm-hmm.
And I literally saw like as soon as she said her first words, it said Bo-Katan, and then what it said, I'm like, it's confirmed, it's confirmed, it's confirmed. It says Bo-Katan, it says Bo-Katan right there. Oh my god, this is amazing. And then, of course, my brain just starts spewing. I'm like, of course, Bo-Katan's coming. The Darksaber was revealed in the first season. She's now coming. She knows it's somewhere. She has to go and find it and recapture it. But
Yeah.
now it kind of brings in is like, where did it go? How did it leave her? And how did it get to where it is now? But in terms of that particular scene, though, definitely really cool. Definitely, I knew that there was an announcement that Katie was going to do that role, but I
Mhm.
had kind of forgotten because it was so long ago. And then when I saw her take the helmet off, she doesn't have her kind of trademark S Battlestar Galactica blonde hair, and I'm like, is that her? And I had to like quickly go to IMDb and be like, Mandalorian season 2. Yeah, it is her. Oh my god, it's her. That's cool, cool. But that was also cool is being a big Battlestar Galactica fan, and then now that's kind of like two beautiful worlds combining.
Mhm.
And she kind of plays the same sort of character in a bit. A
Yep.
badass
Well,
doesn't follow the
she also
rules.
voiced Bo-Katan in the Clone Wars cartoons
Yeah,
and Rebels.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
just so we know, she's been
Uh,
edging in on that role.
Mhm.
should we for the less aware listeners go over briefly what the importance of the Darksaber to Bo-Katan?
Yeah, well, I think that this episode basically illustrates it because she does have a moment where she speaks almost like Moff Gideon, I found,
Mhm.
where she's like, he has something that belongs to me and I must retrieve it, which is all about the Darksaber. And
Mhm.
the point of this whole thing is it's made by one of the first Mandalorian Jedis
Mhm.
made this Darksaber, and basically it's become a symbol for the Mandalorians. Whoever wields the saber commands the Mandalorians
Yeah.
in that sense. But you can only achieve that through a challenge. So I don't think that that's why Moff Gideon is really flexing on that
Yeah.
point, because he's gotten it through some kind of ill means.
Yep.
He's not lost it through a challenge, which that
Yeah.
is kind of what's come out of this episode, because
Mhm.
obviously Bo-Katan doesn't know. She has an idea who has it, but she doesn't know
Yeah.
for sure. She's trying to find the evidence, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
So we would know that it fell over to him during the Great Purge somehow. So it also like there's a lot of
Yeah.
interesting story beats there. For example, Rebels ended the Mandalorian arc stuff with Bo-Katan leading the Resistance, basically.
Yeah.
On Mandalore.
Yeah.
And then we know after that at some point the Empire is like, well, no.
Yeah, and we even have that in the dialogue here, because
Mhm.
the Mandalorians kind of like just in the immediate future, when they all meet afterwards, they get
Mhm.
him out of trouble with some more Quarrens, and they go and they have a drink, and
Mhm.
basically they're saying, we want to go back to Mandalore, and Mando's like, nobody goes there, like you go there and you die.
Yeah.
And they're like, no, not really. Like
Yeah.
it's propaganda at that point.
Mhm.
It's the Empire's propaganda. So there's obviously something on Mandalore that's trying to be hidden, where they're trying to the Empire's trying to actively discourage it. Probably Moff Gideon at this
Mhm.
point, right? Like trying to retain whatever, because he also knew Din Djarin's name and
Mhm.
whatnot. So he's access to Mandalorian law, right? So
Mhm.
he's got some deep firsthand stuff going on there. So
Yeah.
it all is interesting. I don't know how much of it, like to Andy's point, I don't know how much of it gets answered though, like in
Mhm.
this series. I think if
Yeah.
there's rumors of Bo-Katan having her own series, or I think right now we're looking at the idea that Sabine is kind of not at play in this, because everybody was thinking Sasha Banks was going to be Sabine, and she's a Mandalorian. and she's a
Yeah.
damn competent one at that. But she's not reprising that role. So I'm really happy that that choice was made. It's just interesting how the production crew see executing some of these like choices, what they're going to need to fulfill, and it is the story about the Mandalorian and the child getting to a Jedi and trying to alleviate himself of the care of the child,
Mhm.
or is a story about Mandalore? And I think that that's what is dangerously being set up here for fans. Is like they're setting kind of targets on people are getting more involved with the lore of this the more they dangle it in there and pay off the fans for a long time viewership.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely think that. I mean, obviously, as much as going back to my original point that this is being done by Star Wars nerds instead of money execs. Obviously, Disney has the idea and the plan that the Mandalorian is going to be like a 10-season show. We're going to have all this content that's going to happen, but at the same time, they are very beautifully setting this up for, once Baby Yoda goes home or whatever that arc is going to be, that they can start to explore so many other of these plot holes. I mean, the fact that Boba Fett stood there for a second at the end of that one episode, that 32-second moment opens up so many other avenues and so many other back traveling avenues and what happened back then and what happens moving forward. So they're doing it so well in the sense that this can be a long-winded thing. I mean, yes, usually Star Wars is 3 and done, but I think it's going to be a heck of a lot more than 3 seasons. I think it's going to be 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Who knows?
I think they've renewed another 2 seasons.
Yep.
And the news is broken as well that Boba Fett is kind of happening as his own show. And there's also rumors of Cara Dune having her own show. And there's also rumors of, some kind of rebel-esque Ezra / Sabine / Bo-Katan live action, maybe.
Here's the thing about this show, and I think I told Phil this over Messenger, was that this show is now starting to really look like a Rebels and Clone Wars sequel, like part of that kind of line of Star Wars lure. So, I have a feeling that we are going to be seeing Ezra. We are going to be seeing a lot of that stuff really happen here. So, I think that they're on purposely bringing in these characters for a one and done type episode. But, as we've mentioned many times, even on this episode, a lot of these characters are going to have the possibility of spin off shows. So, I think that this show is essentially a launching pad for, years and years of TV to come in the Star Wars world. And it was kind of a test at the same time to see how they can do it. And clearly it's doing well because, I would put a lot of stock into the fact that, this show, The Mandalorian, is the reason why Disney Plus is now at 70 million subscribers.
Yeah. And I'm going to say it right now. I'm going to make the proclamation. Out of everything that I've seen and everything that I see coming up, Disney just made the new Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Like if we were all at the workplace, the cooler talk, around the lunchroom would be about The Mandalorian. Did you watch The Mandalorian on Friday night? Because that's why I had to start watching Game of Thrones, is because people just expected me to be like have my inner nerd on. And I'm like, I really don't like the show. It's too violent. It's too complicated, all this stuff. And now I'm like, well, I got to watch it because that's what everybody's going to talk about on Monday morning. So Sunday night is Game of Thrones night, for those 2 months that it's on. And this is what they're doing here. And they're looking like they're going to make this into an ongoing thing for a long time. Like it's not going to be just 2 months of the year for everybody. It's going to be something like if this realizes its full potential and we have a COVID, home watching world, I think we're, going to see this go into a 3 or 4 month kind of expenditure at a time for
Here's
people
the thing,
with
though.
shows.
I think that they have to be really, really careful. We saw it on the movie side where, we were just tired of more Star Wars movies on the big screen. I think the jump from Last Jedi to Solo, with it only being a 5-6 month break between the two, really, and like let's not even talk of the fan reaction to The Last Jedi. Just that 5-6 month break, it was just too little time for yet another Star Wars movie. So I hope that while this does kick off, a bunch of shows, I hope that they're just timed well so that we just don't get Star Wars fatigue again. That would be the worst thing that can happen, because then, people are just going to start dropping off left, right, and center. So I hope that they are smart in the way that they time this, because this is like the stupidest example, but reality TV, Bravo, they have the Below Deck series. They have 3 spin-offs, and literally they go start and end right after each other. And while the ratings are still high, me personally, and I know of other people who watch those shows, it's just now that they're getting Below Deck fatigue, and I cannot fucking believe I'm done.
Yeah, and that's a real concern, because when you're being this creative, you have to be on point with Dave Filoni, and the creatives have to have the quality stories. If
Yep.
you start diluting it and spreading it out, all you're going to do is lose audience.
Yep.
I don't think, unless you're shooting demographics or something like that, like there's really a sustained vision that's going on about, well, we don't want regular Star Wars people. We want little girls to watch Star Wars, and this is their way to get into it type of show.
Yeah,
Maybe.
I'm wondering how much they're going to learn from the Marvel side of things. Because even if you don't like a movie, those numbers are really hard to argue with.
Yep.
And they've definitely demonstrated they can do that meta arc in a way that has not really ever been done before. So we have WandaVision is January something officially.
January
now.
15th.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Official? I
Official.
thought it was moved back again.
It came out this week.
Yep.
January
Yeah, it's
15th.
official like today. The next trailer dropped like this morning. And then Winter Soldier Falcon is not too long after. So I'm wondering, with all these announcements, I'm hoping that they're learning from the other side, because that side has shown it knows how to do a meta narrative and pull these pieces together, and they don't get hit by the same fatigue that Boris is identifying for Star Wars.
Yeah.
Honestly, I didn't have fatigue going in Solo, but I know I'm a different sweaty type of nerd. My issue was the Last Jedi flavor that was in my mouth.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, if I was going to skip that movie and I didn't, if I was going to, it would have been because I was just so mad at the Last Jedi choices, which I'm becoming better with. Everybody, don't worry.
Hey, Andy, what's your take on kind of like, the strategy moving forward? Would you be in the Star Wars fatigue boat?
I'm going to be honest with you. Star Wars has always had an incredibly important place in my heart, my soul, my life. Hell, even when I met my fiance, her Tinder profile literally said, "Do or do not. There is no try." And I'm like, "That's the one. That's the one right there." And I haven't experienced Star Wars fatigue. Like, when after The Last Jedi came out and I knew I had to wait for Mandalorian, I started binge watching the Clone Wars and Rebels, because I knew they existed. I didn't know what they were about or whether they were any good. And then I found out that they were great. And I started watching, and I'm like, oh my God, Rebels is brilliant. The storyline is fantastic. And then Clone Wars, oh my God, so good. And it's like, I never watched Clone Wars, and I'm like, I know what happens in Clone Wars. Why would I want to watch a cartoon about I know what happens. But what I love about it is that we have our movies, but then we're starting to now being like, well, there's so much that happens in between everything or after everything, that there's so many more other avenues that we can start to go and invest into. The thing that kind of worries me into my head, and it's the one I'm really worried about with Marvel, is we've gone through all the mainstream things that can capture such a huge, massive audience, because it's it's the big names for Marvel, Iron Man, Thor, all those guys are all out there. Cool. But now we're going to start to dive into the more deeper Marvel, like Eternals and stuff like that. And are the audiences going to be as receptive to something that's more deeper into the depths of comic books and stuff like that, that mainstream people don't necessarily know a hell of a lot about? I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I don't know a lot about Eternals. I know nothing about Eternals, but I'm excited to learn about it. But I don't think the mainstream people are necessarily going to be as excited.
Oh,
I mean,
I'd like to look at Guardians of the Galaxy though. If it's
that was
well
what I was gonna
done,
say.
yeah, if it's well done, take my money now. Like seriously. Because
Yeah.
I've never had so much fun in a movie theater as Guardians 1 and 2. And oddly enough, those movies always coincide with something really bad happening in my life.
Oh
But I
God,
still
right?
love, yeah, and I don't even consciously think about that because I'm just like my excitement for the show just outweighs
Oh, yeah.
any anxiety that I have in my own superstition. So if the Eternals is done in such a way that it's that compelling,
Mhm.
I'm excited. Sign me up. Like
Yeah.
you
And I
can
think
make a
also,
movie about toenail fungus. I don't care.
you know, I think Marvel also has one major ace up their sleeve, and that's the fact that they now have X-Men in their properties. They now have, you
Mhm.
know, all these other characters that are actually, you know, before 2008 would have been above Iron Man in the
Mhm.
Marvel landscape, you know? So they have that huge ace up their sleeve, and coincidentally, Star Wars, to a certain extent, has the same. You know, you want name recognition. Well, Ewan McGregor is going to be Obi-Wan Kenobi again, you know? Like, they have a few aces up their sleeve, and I'm sure that there's a few aces up their sleeve that we don't know about just yet.
Yeah, and honestly, I just to pad that, like you look at through that acquisition, they also get the Fantastic Four.
Yeah.
They also get, you know what I mean? Like there
Yeah.
are endless franchises that are storied comic books and cartoons and things that we grew up with in the 80s and whatnot that were just like so massive
Yeah.
on the comic book shelves and whatnot. And they have all that brand new to them and to
Mhm.
matriculate into their story. Because if you would have told me, oh, there's going to be a 23 movie arc ending in Endgame, and it's going to be one of the most cinematic masterpieces as far as a culmination of climax
Mhm.
for a worldwide audience, you
Yeah.
know, no, I would have been like bullshit. Not
Yeah.
going to happen. I'm sorry. 23 movies,
Yeah.
way too ambitious.
And go
We're
back
gonna
to
have
2005 and say that Robert Downey Jr. is going to be the mainstream part of all that. We would have definitely been like
You
Yeah.
mean that guy in
completely
jail? You know, like,
Yep. Yep. We're gonna have a fat Thor, and you're gonna love it.
Yeah.
What? What are you talking about?
but
Mark
you know,
Ruffalo, who is just in 16 Candles, he's gonna be Hulk.
yeah. But here's the here's the thing though. Like, do you guys ever watch this show and kind of turn down the Star Wars geek dial and try to watch it like as an everyday viewer? You know, because I look in my life and not a lot of people I know are just average fans who are tuning into Mandalorian. I would love to actually have a conversation with someone who isn't like this rabid fan who knows all these characters, who know, you know, their backstories, etc. Like, I would just, are non-Star Wars fans enjoying this show as much as we are?
Yeah,
I
that's a good question.
think so because this is what happens when social media lights up
Mhm.
and people are not in on the joke. They want to be in on it. Like if they see the stuff happening and they go, "Oh, I want to know about these frogs. I want
Yeah.
to know about this. I want to know about this baby Yoda." Like that's what my niece was like. I gotta watch The Mandalorian, Phil, because like what's going on? It seems like there's a cultural phenomenon happening, and I'm missing out on the joke. You
Mhm.
know, like
Yeah.
that's what's bringing the people in, and they're finding out that yeah, you know, you get the next level if you're a huge fan. Like the feedback that I got from my niece and her fiance was, we really liked it. It was a bit out there
Mhm.
for us, so we found it difficult in spots, but seeing everybody's enjoyment kept us watching it. So it was
It's-
interesting.
Yeah.
It didn't compel them story wise, I don't think, as
Cool.
much.
Good to know.
Well,
I
and
mean,
from go for it, Andy.
cinematically, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Writing wise,
Mhm.
it's great. The acting choices, the celebrity cameos, all those things adding in together, it is an incredibly enjoyable show. I mean, of course, I'm saying this through deep, deep, deep bias, being a huge Star Wars fan, but it is at the end of the day a very enjoyable show.
Yep. Well, basically, I'm just gonna move we're getting close to the end here, so I'm just gonna move the story along, just so the viewers we can react to this because I really think that this chunk of the show is just a huge, battle extraordinaire where they're
Mhm.
trying to take this ship. They're trying to get the cargo. They have another alien moment where they use the airlock and blow them out the back. So I just think that parallel is funny. We get through all that, and we talked about it already about the Darksaber kind of lure, and basically Bo-Katan telling Mando where to go to find Ahsoka Tano. So I don't think that there's much we can say other than it was a lot of fun and suspense and action.
Yeah.
Right. Like
Mhm.
it was a little bit weird having those heavy repeaters and Mando just kind of like, all right, screw it. I'm just gonna walk at them now. Like,
So
I'm
I
like,
actually
if you
wanted
could
to.
do that, why don't you do that all the time?
I mean, I wanted to jump on that because it looked like it was still hurting him.
Yeah.
It just wasn't
Yeah.
killing him instantly. Because think about. I think that they're doing a good job making it seem more like it's like a Kevlar shirt or a
Yeah.
Kevlar vest or whatever. Because like he's getting
Mhm.
hit. Like he is not loving that this is happening.
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was definitely hitting him. Each one of those shots was like a punch to the chest. Wasn't killing him, but he's going to wake up pretty bruised.
Mhm.
Yeah, it just kind of bothers me though that the armor is so fit. Like his chest is covered, his head's covered, his shoulders. There are certain elements though that look completely exposed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm like, I guess we're like really playing that they can't hit anything. They're stormtroopers type angle. So they're not going to be able to get your upper thigh or something like that, or someplace where you have a gap that's there, or
Yeah.
your boots aren't made of Beskar. So I'm like, they could take your foot out, that type of thing. But it's TV. It's I guess it gets ruined if we get too intense on that
Yeah.
kind of stuff.
One thing I really enjoyed
And,
about this
yeah.
was that they kind of really built up the fact that this isn't this isn't their first rodeo. They've been doing this for a long time, probably. So the remnants of the Empire, they obviously know who these people are, and they kind of know what to expect. So they obviously had the orders to bring the ship down if need be.
Yeah.
it kind of adds to that backstory that this isn't the first time this is happening. It's just we're seeing it for the first time because we're seeing the show through Mando's eyes.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
I think that leads to our speculation about other properties being able to use these characters under Disney and tell a pretty interesting story.
Yeah.
Right? Like they could pick up this thread and use it as a foundation for a lot of stuff going forward.
There was
So-
one part in the show we haven't touched on, and it was literally, I think, maybe a grand total of 15 seconds. The Jedi witch lady that we saw for like 2 seconds on the dock.
Mm.
She was there and then gone.
You know
Is
what? I was
she
going to talk
following
about
him?
this, but I think it's just because that's Sasha Banks who
Yeah.
showed up as a Mando. So I think she just donned a robe, and they were already, because the Mandalorian's walking around in shiny Beskar. Those Mandalorians took off their gear, or she put on a cloak, much like if you look at Clone Wars in that last little the last season that Dave Filoni did, there was a lot of Mandalorians wandering around in cloaks,
Okay,
right, with
right.
Ahsoka
Yeah, yeah,
Tano's
yeah,
kind of thing. So I'm reading it like that. I don't know.
yeah. Okay.
It's
'Cause
pure.
I kind of got like a not full on Night Sister vibe, but a bit of one. And I was like, ooh, is
Mhm.
that the direction we're going with this? And then she was gone, and I'm like, no, I needed more
Yeah.
of that. But I think you're probably more right.
I don't know if pull on that thread, like,
Mhm.
because it is the same actress. I think
Yeah, it is.
we've
I'm gonna have to rewatch it.
thoroughly examined that, and it's not immediately clear either because she looks completely different in the Mandalorian stuff.
Mhm.
Like I'm
Yeah.
just like, is that the same actress? And it is.
Yeah.
So, we have the imp killing himself. We've got Mando going back to his ship, and I don't know why. I did not like this choice. Did not like the choice that it's all pirated up inside. Like, why do we need to have netting on the chair? Why is there a sea creature wandering around the cockpit?
I got that bit.
Well, I got it. I didn't like it.
Yeah.
I've already told you guys before we even started recording, I don't like pirate stuff that much, but when it's done well, it doesn't bug me. And this one kind of was just like a little too kitsch for me.
I think they're
Like,
just
you could-
trying to show the fact that, hey, he's been places. Like, even in the final scene, with literally the ship falling apart as they're in space.
Yeah, and there's pieces of it jettisoning all over the place too.
Yeah.
Which is kind of funny. To your guys' points as well, I don't know how long that ship's gonna last.
No, exactly.
It's getting messy.
I don't know. I think it's the new Millennium Falcon. I think it's never being gotten rid of. No matter how badly it gets beaten up, he's like, get the mechanic. And they're like, it's cheaper to buy a new one. He's like, get the mechanic.
Yeah. Yeah, it's becoming its own character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just reminds me of in You Girl, Winston's car from season 1, when it's like literally being held together by bungee cords and duct tape.
Yeah. Big time. Well, I bought a $150 Lego model of it, so better stick around for the season at least.
Well, you got to get the pirate one now.
Yeah.
Don't even.
Bill's birthday is coming up in January, so I know what I'm gonna get him. All the pirate Lego.
Just get a bunch of pirate Lego and just put it on your Razor Crest.
There is a new boat that's kind of got me questioning. Like it breaks apart. I don't know. But let's take a quick round to talk about what we think is going to happen in the next episode or two. Andy, what do you think? Where are we going?
I think as much as I think we may have mentioned earlier that Ahsoka Tano might not come until the very end of the season, I think she's coming next episode. I really think we're finally going to meet her. If anything, for like maybe the end of the episode, she's going to like do that like silhouette walk in to a room kind of thing and then credits. But I definitely think her reveal is either next episode or it has to be the one after that one. I'm now like I don't know where we're gonna go with the whole Bo-Katan in terms of her getting her saber back, because it's almost become two separate storylines happening now. Baby Yoda has to get to where he's got to go, and she's got to get her sword back. So maybe they're both gonna then ultimately come back in the end, but I'm very intrigued about where those two things are going to go, and I don't have a prediction because everything's been kind of like oh my god, every episode.
So Boris, what do you think?
Go
Tyler, go.
I'm championing the bit because mine goes off Andy's really well. I have two theories, and both of them are unfortunately longer term because I don't know the next episode. But I think that number one, I think the end thing for Baby Yoda is he doesn't leave. He stays with Mando, and he becomes a Mandalorian, right? Because we go back to that adopted Mandalorian culture, which we're already bringing in a bit. And number two, I think we're going to start doubling down in general on the Force being not just Jedi and Sith. We got a lot of that in Rebels, and it's always been part of like Ahsoka's shtick. And then if you kind of look at the meta narrative that we're starting to see, because we have Fallen Jedi, which has a bunch of Force users who are not Jedi or Sith. And Baby Yoda is 100%. He's not Jedi or Sith, but there we go.
Boris?
I think that they're going to throw a curveball, and I think that next week we're going to see like a Freak of the Week type episode. And then we're going to get back to whichever narratives they want to throw at us the following week with Ahsoka Tano. I can even see that happening at the end of next episode, where again we see a tease and then we're gonna have to wait another week. One thing that we do have to also consider is the fact that not this Thursday but next Thursday is Thanksgiving, so they might be wanting to make that episode huge.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking this next episode is Billy D. Williams directing,
Mhm.
I think we're gonna have obviously some major freaking issues with the Razor Crest, and I think we're gonna have an episode where they have to remedy those issues before they can advance the Ahsoka Tano plotline.
Mhm.
I do think that Dave Filoni is scheduled for episode 5 as a director, and I think he is squarely going to be assigned to bring to life the character that he's developed and turn from the most hated Star Wars, one of the most hated, I will say Jar Jar is probably higher, but one of the most hated, people in Snips, and she's now the most rejoiced and beloved character. I think that ultimate um, honor is his to tackle, and I'm really excited to see if that's true. And I just want to see more than anything with this show and with what's happening with The Mandalorian. I just want to see the people who put in the hard work for a long time and got teased get their due and get the recognition that they deserve. And I think Dave and John are two of the most capable guys for that. So I'm excited. I know you guys all are. Andy, I want you to let us know where we can find you on the interwebs. Let the people know where they can find you.
Absolutely. So I love talking about Star Wars. I love talking about sports, definitely. I love talking about just about anything. But if you want to connect, this is Andy Hall This is Andy Hall on both Facebook and Instagram, and Halsey87 if you're on Discord. So yeah, that's it.
Awesome.
And there you have it. That was a really fun chat. Again, thank you so much, Andy, for joining us. And, the door is open for you to join us anytime you want. And I know that you will for sure be joining us whenever we do chat about the Doctor Who. Phil's not allowed on that episode, but Andy for sure will be.
Wait, why is
Hey,
Phil
man.
getting thrown under the bus?
Oh, because
I'm outspoken about Doctor Who.
he's very outspoken about it.
Oh, right. Boris doesn't know my feelings about the Doctor yet.
No, I've avoided the subject with you, so, I will continue to do so.
I can be a neutral observer to Doctor Who. Put it that way.
I have views on some of the creative teams.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
fair enough.
Fair.
But,
Good time. Andy did great.
Yeah,
So.
Andy did awesome. Thanks again, Andy, for joining us. Through technical issues, because we wouldn't have it any other way. That's clearly in canon in our timeline. But without further ado, if you are a listener and you do think that you have and want to chat with us about anything and everything, Phil, tell them how they can get a hold of us.
Well, you can find us at our website, which is www.itscanonpodcast.com. Check it out. It's being redesigned. It's kind of hot. And we're also on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at It's Canon Podcast. You can email us at show@itscanonpodcast.com. You can subscribe via Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, Podbean, Amazon, really anywhere you find podcasts, you're going to find the It's Canon Podcast show. So please subscribe to get notified about future episodes. And if you can, please leave a rate and a review for our show. It's greatly appreciated. And without listeners like you, we wouldn't have anything. So come on, enjoy yourselves. Come on out and tune in.
That's right. Thank you so much, everyone. It's been a blast. We will not have a featured episode this week. We were able to fit everything into our news episode. So the next time that you can hear me, at least, is on Thursday for NXT Talk when I'm joined with Matt. And again, I just want to remind everyone that show for now is on the It's Canon podcast feed, but it might be moving to a more possibly, bigger feed soon. But, you know, I do want to thank everyone who has been tuning into the various shows. You know, it's been the response, honestly, has been awesome, has been fantastic to read. You know, it's kind of funny. One thing that I always say about this show is that, you know, we don't do any prep for it. But the reality is that we, like, without realizing it, put so many hours of prep in a week. And for that, I always, you know, I have to thank Phil and Tyler for, you know, doing what they do to be ready for this show. So thank you guys. And it means a lot. It means a lot to have the listeners and the audience that we do. So, you know, thank you so much. And, you know, just a reminder, the 12 Days of Christmas is coming up. I can't believe I actually announced that because I regret even bringing that thought into my mind. But it's coming up in a few weeks. And we have to finalize what we're actually going to be talking about. But
Oh my God, we're in trouble.
yep, nothing but Doctor Who. But without further ado, thank you so much, everyone. He's Tyler, he's Phil, I'm Boris. Good night.